It was late November of 2021, and I was driving back to Sacramento after visiting my sister in a small town outside Redding. Normally, I would have stayed the night, but I had to be at work early the next morning, and figured the 3-hour drive wouldn't be that bad. I left around 8:30 p.m., grabbed a coffee from a gas station near the freeway, and started heading south on Interstate 5. At first, the drive was completely normal. There were a few cars on the road, some trucks in the distance, and the radio was quietly playing some late-night talk show. I remember feeling tired, but not dangerously tired. Just that dull, heavy feeling you get after a long day. The kind where you're perfectly capable of driving, but you're looking forward to getting home and collapsing into bed. About 40 minutes into the drive, the fog started rolling in. If you've ever driven through California's Central Valley at night, you probably know what that fog can be like. It doesn't creep in slowly. Sometimes, it just appears. 1 minute the road is clear, and the next minute, it's like someone threw a giant white blanket over the highway. Within a few miles, visibility dropped to almost nothing. I slowed down to about 40 miles per hour and switched on my fog lights. The highway that had a handful of cars earlier was suddenly empty. It was like everyone else had either exited or pulled over somewhere. The road ahead of me looked like a tunnel made of gray smoke. The strange thing about fog that thick is how quiet everything feels. Even though I was driving at highway speed, the world outside my windshield looked completely still. The headlights reflected back off the fog, making everything look flat and washed out. It was disorienting. I remember thinking that if it got any worse, I might pull over at the next exit and wait it out. But there weren't many exits in that stretch. Another 10 minutes passed like that. Just the hum of the engine, the white fog swallowing the road ahead, and the occasional reflective highway sign appearing out of nowhere. Then, I saw something. At first, it looked like a dark shape on the shoulder of the road. My brain assumed it was probably a broken down car, or maybe a road sign that was partially obscured. But as my headlights got closer, the shape started to look more human. There was someone standing on the side of the highway. I slowed down instinctively. The figure was tall, wearing what looked like a dark jacket or hoodie. They weren't waving for help or trying to flag me down. They were just standing there, facing the road, completely still. As I drove past, I glanced over. It was a man, at least. I'm pretty sure it was. He looked maybe mid-30s, average build, short dark hair. His hands were down at his sides, and he was just staring straight ahead into the fog. He didn't turn his head as my car passed. He didn't react at all. That alone felt weird, but I shrugged it off. Maybe his car had broken down somewhere behind him, and he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was on the phone, or just spaced out. Still, something about it bothered me, mostly because there hadn't been any other cars on the shoulder, and out there, in the middle of nowhere, that's not really a place you'd just be standing around. I kept driving. The fog got even thicker. At that point, I could barely see the lane markers. I leaned forward over the steering wheel, focusing hard on the road ahead. Another 5 minutes passed. Then, my headlights caught another shape ahead. This time, it was closer to the road. My stomach dropped when I realized what I was looking at. It was the same guy, standing on the shoulder. Again, same height, same dark clothes, same stiff posture. I remember actually saying out loud, "What the hell?" There was no possible way he could have gotten ahead of me. I hadn't passed any exits and there were no other vehicles around. Still, I slowed down as I passed him again. And this time, as my car got close, the guy turned his head. He looked straight at me. Our eyes met for maybe half a second. But the way he moved his head, it wasn't natural. It was quick, almost jerky, like he had been waiting for me. A chill went through my entire body. I pressed harder on the gas and kept driving. Now, my heart was beating faster, and I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see headlights behind me. But the road was still empty. The fog seemed heavier than ever. Another couple of minutes passed, and I tried to convince myself that it was just a coincidence. Maybe there were two different people who just looked similar. Maybe there was a small road or driveway I didn't notice. But deep down, I didn't believe that. And then, things got worse, because up ahead, standing directly in the middle of my lane, there was someone on the road. I slammed on the brakes. The car screeched as it slowed to a stop about 20 feet away from the figure. It was the same guy. He was standing perfectly still in the center of the highway. This time, he had the hood of his jacket pulled up, shadowing his face. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. My headlights lit him up in the fog, creating this eerie halo of white light around his body. I rolled down my window a little and shouted, "Hey, move!" No response. He just stood there. Then, slowly, he took one step forward. That was when panic really set in. I shifted the car into reverse and glanced at my rearview mirror. And that's when I saw another person behind me. Someone was walking out of the fog toward the back of my car. I couldn't make out their faces, but I could clearly see their silhouette getting closer. My brain instantly went into survival mode. "Hell no," I muttered. I threw the car into drive and jerked the wheel to the left, swerving around the man in front of me. He didn't move. He didn't try to stop me. But just as I passed him, bam, something slammed violently into the back of my car. The impact jolted the entire vehicle sideways. I gripped the wheel and fought to keep control. The sound was loud, like metal crunching. For a split second, I thought another car had rear-ended me. But when I looked in the mirror, there was nothing there. No headlights, no car, no people, just fog. I didn't stop to think about it. I hit the gas and drove as fast as I safely could. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the wheel steady. The fog finally started to thin out about 15 minutes later as I approached a major interchange near Stockton. Streetlights appeared, traffic returned, and suddenly everything felt normal again. Almost too normal. I pulled into a gas station and just sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, trying to calm down. My heart was still racing. The more I thought about it, the more my brain tried to rationalize what happened. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe the fog was playing tricks on my eyes. Maybe the people I saw were just road signs or shadows. And maybe when I swerved, I accidentally backed into something without realizing it. That explanation started to make sense. Until I got out of the car. I walked around to the back and just stood there. The rear bumper was crushed. Not scratched, crushed. A huge dent stretched across almost the entire width of it, like something heavy had slammed into my car at full force. But there was no paint transfer, no debris, nothing stuck in the metal, just a deep, clean impact. I stared at it for a long time. Then, I slowly looked back at the dark highway I had just come from. I still tell myself that the fog and exhaustion probably made me hallucinate those people. It's the only explanation that makes sense. But every once in a while, when I think about that night, I remember something that bothers me more than anything else. When I checked my rearview mirror before speeding away, the person walking toward my car was less than 10 feet behind me. And if they were that close, then whatever hit my car should have hit them too. This happened late last fall, maybe 3 months ago. I still think about it way more often than I want to. There are moments where it randomly pops back into my head, usually when I'm driving at night or when the weather gets foggy. I'll just remember that sound and the shape I saw standing in the road, and it makes my stomach drop all over again. I've told a few people about it, but nobody really knows what to say. Most of them think there's some kind of simple explanation that I just didn't notice at the time. I'd honestly prefer that. I'd rather believe I misunderstood something normal than accept that I might have encountered something I can't explain. But the more I replay that night in my head, the less sense it makes. At the time, I was living in a small town about 40 minutes outside the nearest city. It's the kind of place where everything shuts down early. After about 9 or 10 at night, the roads are mostly empty and the streets get really quiet. I work remotely, so I spend a lot of time inside during the day. Because of that, I've gotten into the habit of going for drives at night, just to clear my head. Nothing crazy, just putting on music and driving around the back roads for a while. There's one particular route I like. It loops around the edge of town and cuts through a stretch of farmland and woods before reconnecting with the highway. The whole loop takes about 20 minutes if you're not in a hurry. I've driven that road dozens of times. That night started like any other. I finished work around 7, made dinner, watched some YouTube for a while, and by about 10:30, I felt restless. So I grabbed my keys and headed out for a drive. The first thing I noticed when I stepped outside was the fog. It wasn't just light mist either. It was thick, the kind where the air almost feels heavy, and you can see it drifting slowly across the streetlights. You could still see down the road, but everything looked faded and distant, like someone had turned down the contrast on the world. I remember hesitating for a second before getting in my car. Something about the fog made everything feel quieter than usual. Not in a peaceful way, either. More like the whole town was holding its breath. But I brushed that feeling off. Once I started driving, it didn't seem like a big deal. I just slowed down a little and turned my high beams off so the fog wouldn't reflect back into my eyes. The streets in town were empty, like usual. I passed maybe one other car before I reached the back road that starts the loop. That's where things started to feel strange. The farther I drove away from town, the thicker the fog got. It was especially bad once the road started running alongside the fields. There were no streetlights out there, so my headlights were the only thing cutting through the haze. Visibility dropped to maybe 50 feet. I remember leaning forward in my seat a little, focusing harder on the road. It was quiet in the car, except for the low hum of the engine and whatever song was playing on the radio. I can't even remember the song now, which is weird because I usually remember details like that. About 10 minutes into the drive, I started noticing something odd. The fog wasn't moving the way fog normally does. Usually, it drifts slowly across the road, kind of swirling and breaking apart as cars pass through it. This stuff just hung there, perfectly still. It looked like a wall of pale gray stretching in every direction. That's when I realized something else. I hadn't seen another car for a while. That wasn't totally unusual, but this road connects two parts of town. Normally you'd pass at least one or two vehicles along the way, but the road behind me and the road ahead were completely empty. I kept driving anyway. A few minutes later, I reached the section where the road curves through a small wooded area. The trees there grow close to the shoulder, and the branches arch overhead in some spots. During the day, it's actually pretty nice looking. At night, especially with fog like that, it's a little unsettling. My headlights barely reached past the first line of trees. The rest of the forest just faded into darkness. I slowed down a little more, maybe 25 miles per hour at that point. That's when I saw something. At first, I thought it was just a shadow. About 30 or 40 feet ahead of me, right in the middle of the road, there was a darker patch in the fog. I remember squinting at it, trying to figure out what it was. As I got closer, the shape started to become clearer, and I realized it was tall, way taller than a person should be. My first thought was that it might be a deer standing up on its hind legs or something weird like that, even though that doesn't really make sense. But as my headlights got closer, the shape didn't move. It just stood there, right in the center of the road. I slowed down even more, almost to a stop, and that's when I heard the sound. At first, it was so quiet, I thought it might be coming from my car. A low, humming noise. Not mechanical, exactly. More like someone holding a long note under their breath. The sound rose and fell slightly, like it was wavering. The moment I realized it was coming from outside the car, every hair on my arm stood up. The shape in the road moved, not forward, not backward. It just swayed, slowly, from side to side, like something balancing in place. I stopped the car completely. The headlights were pointed straight at it now, but the fog made it impossible to see details. All I could make out was a tall, thin silhouette, at least 7 feet high, maybe taller. The humming sound got louder, not dramatically louder, just enough that I could hear it clearly through the glass. I remember thinking that if it was a person, they would have reacted to the headlights by now, shielded their eyes, moved out of the road, done something. But this didn't happen. It just kept swaying slightly, back and forth. The humming continued. Then, something happened that I still can't fully explain. The shape leaned forward, not like someone taking a step, more like it bent at the waist, slowly, as if it were trying to look into the car. That's when I completely lost my nerve. I threw the car into reverse and slammed on the gas. The tires squealed against the pavement, and the car jerked backward down the road. I didn't even think about turning around properly. I just kept reversing until I reached a wider section of road where I could spin the car around. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. As I turned the car around, I made the mistake of glancing back toward where the figure had been standing. For a split second, I saw it again, but it wasn't on the road anymore. It was closer, standing near the edge of the trees, and I swear it looked even taller from that angle. The humming sound had stopped completely. I didn't wait to see anything else. I drove straight back toward town as fast as I could without crashing. The moment I reached the first streetlight, I felt a little bit of the panic start to fade. By the time I got home, I convinced myself that it had probably just been a person messing around. Maybe someone in a costume, maybe a prank. But there are two things that still bother me. The first is the height. Even if someone was wearing something unusual, they would have had to be incredibly tall to look like that. The second thing is the fog. When I checked the weather the next morning, out of curiosity, there was no fog reported anywhere in the area that night. Not in my town, not in the surrounding towns, nothing. And ever since that night, whenever I drive that road, I can't shake the feeling that if the fog ever rolls in like that again, I might see that silhouette standing there in the road, waiting. This happened about 7 years ago, late October. I still think about it sometimes when the weather gets cold and the mornings are heavy with fog. I've told the story a few times to friends over the years, but I usually stop halfway through because the more I think about it, the less sense it makes. Back then, my friend Daniel and I had gotten really into hiking the coastal trails in Northern California. We weren't thrilled seekers or anything like that. We just liked getting out of the city on weekends and spending time somewhere quiet. Daniel especially loved foggy coastal weather. He said it made everything feel older somehow, like the land was hiding secrets. The trip where this happened was supposed to be simple. Just a morning hike along a bluff trail near a small coastal town. Nothing remote, nothing extreme. The trail ran along the cliffs above the ocean for a few miles, before looping back through a forest and returning to the parking lot. We'd both hiked it before. That's part of why the whole thing bothers me so much. We knew the place. We arrived just after sunrise. The parking lot was empty, except for one other car parked near the far end. That wasn't unusual. It was a weekday morning, and the weather forecast had called for thick coastal fog until mid-morning. When we stepped out of the car, the fog was already rolling in from the ocean. It moved slowly across the cliffs, like smoke drifting through the air. Visibility probably wasn't more than 60 or 70 feet. You could hear the ocean below, though. The waves crashing against the rocks echoed up through the fog in this steady, hollow rhythm. Daniel looked out toward the water and smiled. "Perfect hiking weather," he said. I remember laughing, because most people would have called it miserable. We packed light, just water, a couple snacks, and jackets. The trailhead started maybe 20 yards from the parking lot and followed the edge of the bluffs. For the first 20 minutes, everything was exactly how we expected it to be. Quiet. The fog muted everything. Even our footsteps sounded softer than usual on the dirt path. Every once in a while, the fog would thin just enough that you could see the ocean surface below, dark and restless. Other than that, it felt like walking through a cloud. About half a mile into the trail, we started hearing something behind us. At first, I thought it was another hiker. It sounded like footsteps on gravel. Not directly behind us, but somewhere back on the trail, maybe 40 or 50 feet away. I glanced over my shoulder, but all I saw was fog. Daniel must have heard it too, because he slowed down slightly and looked back. "Someone else out here?" he said. "Probably," I said. The other car in the parking lot had crossed my mind already. We kept walking. The strange part was, the footsteps never got any closer. They stayed at the same distance behind us. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. Like someone walking slowly, matching our pace. After a minute, Daniel stopped completely and turned around. The footsteps stopped too. We waited for a few seconds. Nothing. Just the sound of the ocean far below. "Maybe they stopped to check something," I said. Daniel shrugged, and we kept moving. The footsteps started again about 30 seconds later. Same distance, same rhythm. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I remember telling myself it was probably just someone hiking at roughly the same speed as us. The fog was thick enough that they might not even realize we were ahead of them. Still, after another 5 minutes of hearing it, the whole thing started to feel a little strange. Normally on a trail, if someone is behind you for that long, you eventually see them, or they pass you, or they say something. None of that happened. Finally, Daniel called out over his shoulder, "Hey, the trail narrows up here if you want to pass." No response. The footsteps stopped again. We both turned around. Nothing. Just the fog swallowing the trail behind us. That was the first moment I felt a little uneasy. Not scared exactly, just unsettled. Daniel gave me this look, like he was thinking the same thing. "Maybe we're hearing echoes," he said. That actually seemed like a decent explanation. The cliffs could bounce sound around in weird ways. So we kept going. For another 10 minutes, the trail curved along the bluff. The fog got thicker the farther we walked. At one point, visibility dropped so low we could barely see the trail 10 feet ahead. The footsteps returned, same distance, same rhythm, crunch, pause, crunch, pause. By then, I was checking behind us every few seconds, and every time I did, the trail was empty. Then, the fog shifted for a moment, just a thin break in the gray, and I saw someone standing on the trail behind us, maybe 30 feet back, just a silhouette, a person standing still, facing our direction. The fog closed again, almost immediately. I stopped walking. "Did you see that?" I asked. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah." We stood there for a moment, listening. No footsteps, no movement, just the ocean below. Something about it didn't sit right with me. If someone had caught up to us, why would they just stand there silently? Daniel finally said, "Let's keep going." We started walking again. About 30 seconds later, the footsteps started once more. Still behind us, still the exact same distance. At that point, my stomach had this tight feeling I couldn't shake. The trail was supposed to curve inland soon and head through a grove of coastal trees before looping back toward the parking lot. Daniel said quietly, "Maybe we should just finish the loop." I agreed. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both clearly wanted to get off that bluff trail. As we walked faster, the footsteps sped up too. Still the same distance. Always the same distance. That was the part that really got under my skin. No matter how our pace changed, whoever was behind us stayed exactly 30 or 40 feet back. Never closer, never farther. The fog started thinning as we approached the forest section of the trail. Shapes of trees began appearing ahead of us through the gray. And suddenly, the footsteps stopped completely. We didn't hear them again. Not while we were on the bluff. Not while we entered the trees. Nothing. Just silence. The forest was darker than the open trail, but at least the fog was lighter there. We could see maybe 100 feet through the trees. I remember feeling a little relieved. The path curved downhill through the forest for about 10 minutes before reaching a small clearing near the beach access trail. That's where we stopped. Daniel turned around and looked back the way we came. The trail behind us was empty. No one was walking. No one was standing. Just quiet woods. "Maybe they turned around," I said. Daniel didn't answer right away. He was staring at the ground near the edge of the trail. Then, he pointed. "Look at that." I stepped closer. There were footprints in the damp dirt. Bare footprints. Not hiking boots. Not shoes. Just human footprints pressed into the soft ground. They came from the direction of the beach trail. They crossed the clearing, and they continued, up the path we had just come down. I crouched and looked closer. They were fresh. The edges of the prints were still sharp in the mud. Daniel said quietly, "Those weren't there when we came through." He was right. I would have noticed bare footprints on a hiking trail. We followed the direction of the footprints with our eyes. They led up the same forest path we had just walked down, the same path where we'd heard the footsteps following us. Except, these prints weren't behind us. They were ahead of us. They continued up the trail, into the fog, toward the bluffs. Daniel and I just stared at them. Neither of us said anything for a while. Finally, he spoke. "If those came from the beach..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The beach trail was steep and narrow. Anyone coming up from there would have passed directly through the clearing, which meant those footprints should have been behind us when we arrived, not ahead of us, and they definitely shouldn't have continued up the path we'd already walked. Daniel stood up quickly. "Let's go back to the car." I didn't argue. We took the shortcut trail that looped directly back to the parking lot. Neither of us talked much during that walk. When we finally reached the trailhead, the parking lot was still almost empty, except for that same car parked at the far end. No one was inside it. No one was standing nearby, just fog drifting slowly through the lot. We got into Daniel's car and sat there for a moment before starting the engine. As we pulled out, I looked back toward the trailhead. For just a second, through the thinning fog, I thought I saw someone standing at the entrance to the trail, barefoot, completely still. But by the time the fog shifted again, there was nothing there. I've thought about that morning a lot over the years. The footsteps behind us, the silhouette in the fog, the barefoot tracks leading up the trail we had already walked. Maybe there's a simple explanation. Maybe someone really was hiking out there and we just never crossed paths the way we thought we did. But the part one can't get past is this. Those footprints were fresh, and they were ahead of us on a trail we had just come down, which means whoever made them had already walked past us at some point, somewhere inside that fog, and somehow neither of us ever saw them.